Interwebs, and welcome to the Frak This Podcast. I am the exhausted host, Jesse Gender, and I am joined, as always, by...
It's Vera. Probably not as exhausted as you, but I did do a lot of running around this weekend. So
Yeah, I will, we'll get into the story in just a little bit, but I think I found hell yesterday. I particularly, I know where hell is, and I need to explain it. But
well, I'm just going to assume it's in LA, which I already assumed.
No, of all things, it's in the Miami airport.
Oh no, that makes way more sense. Actually, now that you say it out loud, I feel like a fool.
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of goes without saying that the Miami airport would be the place where hell is. But I will explain that in a minute. But I should say, one of the reasons that I was in the Miami airport is that I was there for the Star Trek cruise. And one of the coolest things about the Star Trek cruise that I attended last week was that I got to attend with an amazing person who was there, who is our very special guest this episode. To quick introduce her, she is a brilliant human being who is an actual PhD astrophysicist. She is also a brilliant writer and producer who happened to produce a little film that some of you out there in the audience may know called Identities, directed by some person who gives a shit, but the producer...
Which I got my Blu-ray copy of last week.
Yeah, you did. I'm excited to see it. I haven't gotten mine yet. That's a conversation with Nebula, but we'll have that later. But yes, brilliant producer who produced the wonderful film Identities alongside many other things. But people will most likely know her as the science advisor for the Star Trek franchise, as well as an actor and one of the only two people in the world to actually play a version of themselves within the Star Trek universe, the other being Dr. Stephen frickin' Hawking, and also someone who I have the deep honor to call one of my dearest and closest friends, Dr. Erin Macdonald. Hello.
Hi, friends. No pressure. That was a nice intro. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to be great, and if you're not, I'm going to be deeply disappointed.
I feel it. I can already feel the pressure. It's gonna be good. But we had fun on the cruise.
Yes.
I'm glad you came. That was my 6th cruise, so I have done the Star Trek cruise many times.
You were legitimately a rock star on there, by the way. You invited me, and you were, every single time you were telling me about it, and you're like, yeah, it's a great time. And it was I didn't think you were lying, but what you never told me was literally we would be hanging out and doing going somewhere. I'd be following you and your husband, Mr. Aaron, to go to the bar or whatever. And we couldn't get 2 feet at any point because you were constantly being stopped and people telling you you're amazing, or you inspired me to change my entire life. You are legitimately just a huge star, well deserved too. You kicked ass. I have no idea how you're standing and on this podcast right now.
It's all right. I apologize for the quality of my voice after spending a week doing, I think I did 11 or 12 events that I hosted on the cruise. And yeah, as I said, I go and I give science talks. I host whiskey tastings. I do star parties. We do a lot. It's a lot of fun. The intersection of Star Trek fans and science fans is a pretty big intersection. It's shocking no one.
I'm legitimately shocked at that turn of events.
Stunned, absolutely stunned, silent.
Yep, exactly. No, it was really fun. But I want to hear about your portal to hell.
Okay, so yes, I said repeatedly that I was going to tell you both this story on here. So, how best do I start? So on the cruise, I was unable to go with my fiance, my Erin. Don't tell her that I called her my Erin, or she'd get angry at me. But yes, my fiance Erin was unable to go, so I was with a roommate the entire week. He was decent, he was fine. However, he decided that 4 a.m. in the morning, because we had to be off the ship by 8 a.m. or so, 4 a.m. in the morning was the time to pack. So I got back to our room. He wasn't there. Woke up at 4 in the morning to him packing. He's like, well, we have to be off in just a few hours. I'm like, yeah. And I would like sleep, please. So I was running on 2 hours of sleep.
Oh, no.
And then they had a buffet area on the ship that I was like, all right, I'll grab. I'm nearly dead. And I'm they kicked us out of the room at 8 in the morning. The guy was knocking on the door. So I went up to the buffet area and I ran into a bunch of my friends that I met on the ship and everything, and started chatting with them. and realized and I was not in the mood to have conversations. Like I'd already said goodbye to them and I adore them, love them, but I just could not socialize. But we found out, I was like, oh, I'm leaving at 5. And then one of them went, Holly, a friend, Holly was like, oh, I'm also on that same flight. And she is great, but she's like, we should all go together. And so I was like, no, I just wanted to I don't want to socialize for the next 10 hours with people. And it's like nothing against them. I just don't have energy. So we finally get to, well, no, sorry. I'm going to try and make this quick. We get off the ship, go through everything. We get on this like shuttle to the airport. We get halfway to the airport. We turn into an alley. The guy who's driving the shuttle gets out and swaps places with another driver who does not explain we ask her who she was, does not explain who she is or why why they're swapping drivers in this weird alley. And we were like, there was like 10 of us in the car. So I'm like, I don't think they're going to kidnap us all and kill us because there's a significant amount of us, but it was real weird. Get to the airport. And then this is where I found the portal house. So we could not check in our bags. So we were hours early. And it's like, I didn't want to go around Miami because Florida's bad for trans people just generally. And it was like, I don't want to figure it out.
Just a little.
Yeah. So waiting in the airport, the only place we could find to sit was a Chili's. Is like tiny Chili's just in the corner of everything. It had no room, but it was like a sit-down Chili's. It's like squeezed like this. It's the pre-security Chili's. Go to sit down at a table. The waitress does not come for 10 minutes. Is one of the rudest people that I've ever met in my life. And I'm not trying to like be like, I'm sure she's dealing with people, but it was like, I asked for like water and she like looked at me like I had asked to like to murder her child or whatever. And then I was like, all I want was just a coffee. I was just like, I just want a coffee. And she's like, we don't have coffee here. And I'm like looking at the menu and it says coffee. I'm like, but it says coffee on she's like, we don't have coffee. We can do espresso. And I'm like, oh, okay, can you just do an Americano then? And she's like, no. I'm like, do you have espresso and hot water? And she's like, no, we can't do an Americano. And I'm like, how do you not? I just want coffee. Please just give me coffee.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, just bring me hot water and bring me the espresso and I'll make it myself. So I make it myself and then we order food. And I'm like, can I just have this salad? And they're like, oh, we don't have the chicken for that. We don't have the tortilla chips for that. We don't have the salsa for that or the avocado for that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Can I just get this then? It's like, oh, I think they didn't have like the meat for it. And I'm like, what do you have? And they didn't have anything. It's a Chili's that doesn't have any food for Chili's or know what coffee is.
Gosh.
And so I just ordered the tiniest salad and sat there for an hour and a half in this place. And I kept asking for water because I didn't have any water. And they didn't, I asked 5 times for water and did not get a single glass of water. And I wanted to die. So yes, that was a long ass story, but hell is a pre-security airport Chili's in Miami, Florida, and I wanted to die.
Can I make your life just slightly worse?
Yes, yeah.
Pronounce espresso, not espresso. There's no X in it.
Don't give me this. Don't give me this.
Just really digging in there, aren't you?
You're welcome.
I hate you, Vera.
I know.
All right. Well, now that I explained that story for 10 minutes.
It's like, okay, no, like, I'm going to add on to that because this shocks me, right? I have done this cruise so many times. We've gone out of Florida multiple times, Port Canaveral and Miami. And like these airports are a ton of cruise people on the weekend. It's a ton. I think there were 8 boats in the Miami harbor that got there that morning. And you can't check your bags more than 4 hours before your flight. And there's nothing before security. I'm like, you could have a whole business operation running of whole airports, bars, restaurants, everything walkable, tons of space, have people put their luggage there. Yeah. There is a missed opportunity here, and it shocks me that these airports just don't.
I am anti-capitalist as hell, and even I could leave it like, look, this is a market to exploit people. Please, please
anyway,
exploit
you are leaving so much money on the table.
You are.
Yeah.
Everyone's hungover. Everyone just wants like one last drink while they're still on their vacation, and yet we're like sitting on the floor next to like a baggage wrapping station for an hour and a half, just waiting for us to be able to check our bags. And like, yeah.
And it's like a sad airport too. Like I was there for like 10 and like all of the nice airport, like they're really nice airports. The Miami airport's kind of sad. It's like a really kind of sad airport. Everything looks
There was
depressing.
like they had like a Heineken station. It looked like a Heineken food court in my terminal, but it was just like all like a Heineken brand with like 4 chairs in front of it and like a Heineken dispensing person behind the quote unquote bar. And then like the only place we found to hang out for the 3 hours before our flight was like the Bud Light Lounge.
That's what I found. I was just going to mention, I found the Bud Light Lounge. And I'm like, what a sad, depressing place this is.
I'll just sip my hard cider and gloat.
You bougie bitch.
Raspberry hard cider.
I love it.
Yes. Yes.
Good grief.
Well,
anyway,
I wanted to ask you, Erin.
Yes.
Before we get into the Battlestar Galactica of all.
Feel free to ask me what I do with my weekend at any point.
I don't give a shit about you, Vera. Why do I give a fuck? Why would I ever care about that? All right. This is okay. She gave me a number, audience. This is a bit that we have, Erin. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Deal.
Vera, how were you? How was your week?
My week was fine. I did a fair bit of running around. On Friday, my boyfriend and I went and saw a performance of Sweeney Todd.
Ooh.
Vermont Repertory Theater. They were very good. And they had... There were some like standard theater seats further back, but in the performance space, which is closer to a black box theater than anything else, but all of the seats up towards the front, it was done up like dinner theater. Like you had a table that you sat at with like 4 chairs around it. Mm-hmm. There was like blood spatter on the tablecloths. And during one of the songs, when Mrs. Lovett was like putting stuff in the grinder, she like grabbed a bone and tossed it out into the audience. It landed right on our table.
Beautiful.
It was good. It was like everybody was good. Mrs. Lovett and Toby were phenomenal. Like they were exceptional, but everybody was good. So that was my Friday. And then on Saturday, I went and saw my girlfriend. We watched a few things. I saw Furiosa finally, which was good.
Nice.
Yeah,
saw Nosferatu finally, which was excellent.
Haven't seen it yet.
And then we went and saw Captain America: Brave New World. And I'm not going to give my thoughts. I am going to give the officially sanctioned review that my girlfriend gave the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The popcorn at the Bennington Cinema was excellent. That is her official review of that movie.
Oh, so sad.
Yeah,
so sad.
Yeah, that movie made me depressed watching it. Especially when the villain. I won't spoil, but like, there's a scene at the end where the villain just shows up, and it's clearly the most green screen thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, he's just awkwardly standing there. It's wild.
What I thought was the most green screen thing was the speech, like in the final confrontation of the main character, like talking down, the person that he's fighting. That was the most green screen thing I'd ever seen. It was like, oh my God. Okay.
Have you all watched the franchise on HBO?
Yes, and it's
an Armando Iannucci series about making a Marvel-like films. and they have some scenes like that are just like all green screened, and it's so hilarious. And is it Richard Armitage? Is that Richard? No, it's not Richard Armitage. The British actor. The British actor.
I know I was just about to say, because I forgot his name.
He was Loki. He was cheesy Loki.
Yeah, I'm forgetting his name too. Famous British actor.
Richard E. Grant.
Richard E.
Grant.
Yes.
Thank you. Bless you. They were like, he was so committed to the bit as like I'm doing this for work.
Yeah, I'm so over this fucking thing.
So good. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
My favorite was the episode where they blow up the wrong bridge.
Yeah, that's so good.
But speaking of practical sets, let's talk about Battlestar Galactica. That was actually a semi-decent transition. Usually
That wasn't bad, especially by your metrics.
Yeah, I'm proud of me. Everyone should give me accolades, and by doing that, I have ruined the transition. But anyways,
back to business as usual.
Yes.
Nicely done.
Briefly, Erin, I wanted to just, before we get into the Battlestar Galactica of it all, I knew when we were doing Battlestar Galactica, I wanted to have you on because you and I have talked numerous times about Battlestar Galactica, and how much we both fucking love it. And I asked you why I asked you to just pick an episode that you wanted to be on for, and you chose this one, which is 33, the very first episode of the actual series of Battlestar Galactica. So I just want to give you a moment. Why do you love Battlestar Galactica, and why this episode?
Yeah, so I've shared my story with like science fiction writ large and especially Star Trek before, but I didn't grow up in a sci-fi household at all. Like my parents were just not sci-fi people. I think I was getting into it. I was watching the X-Files obsessively. I had discovered like Star Wars through family members or whatever. And then like my parents, when I was like 13, were like, you know, what would be a great bonding moment for this kid who's into science fiction is to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, the only science fiction film we've ever seen in our lives. And so, but anyway, just to give the context, like I was not raised in a sci-fi household. So I was a lot late to the game for a lot of these shows, and Battlestar was sort of coming out, like I think the miniseries was sort of near the end of high school, and then I was in college when it was mostly airing, which was a perfect time for it. And I think it was because there was a lot, like it was on and it was off, and then it was changing networks, and they split up seasons and all of this. And so I remember starting to get into it, I think when like season 3 was starting to come out. So season 2 had already fully been out and on DVD. So I was catching
Jesse,
up.
I'm just going to make the request. Next time we have a guest, get somebody older than me for once. Can I not be the oldest person here?
I'm so sorry.
People talking about when they're in high school and just going, oh, God damn it.
I know, the youth. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. I'm playing it up a little. I will give her as much shit as I can come up with because, you know, you take it very well.
Thanks, Vera. Don't embarrass me in front of the other guests, all right?
Why not give me one good reason why I shouldn't let Erin and all of the watching public see the color fill your cheek?
This is what she does, Erin. This is what she does. She just bears. And now this is on video because we're recording video.
I know.
I despise this.
Delighted.
Anyway, sorry, you were talking, Erin, before.
Oh, it's okay.
Decided to be, petty and cruel.
I decided to be myself, so sue me.
No, my college boyfriend was super into it, and so we put it on. I mean, the miniseries, I was obsessed. But the reason I chose 33 is because for me, like, it stood out because, like, the miniseries is so good. It's so good. And it ends so well. And then to have an episode, like, meet that level of expectation to kick off a show is a really hard thing to do. And I think they do it so well. And it's just so good at universe setting. It's so good at raising the stakes. There's mysteries going on. I don't know. It just kicks off the story so well. And the pacing of it is just burned in my brain. And I love any show where you can say the title of an episode and people almost ubiquitously know which episode you're talking about. And 33 is one of it's why I thought it was the first one that popped. There's other episodes that may be my favorite and ones that I think are like multi-parters that I could probably argue, but I'm not going to spoil anything. But this one is just burned into my brain as a great Battlestar Galactica episode.
Yeah, we'll talk more as we go into it. But yeah, it's a very like structurally tight episode that is just very memorable and a really interesting way to start off the show. But we'll let us actually talk about, we'll save our overall thoughts for the end, but let us get into our recap. Alrighty. We start off the episode with kind of a bunch of cross-cutting going on, where we start off on Colonial 1, where Baltar is sound asleep as we see sort of seconds click away on a clock. Many of the clocks in this episode are marked with the number 33 on it in between the 30 and 35 minutes, as we'll figure out why that is the case in just a little bit. But we also see Rosalind dealing with stuff, like she's sort of presidenting and so saying, yeah, I'll deal with this after the next jump or whatever. But there's like a sense of pervading like tension in the air. On the Galactica, we have Starbuck and Lee are clearly exhausted and they're out in their Vipers. Civilian ships are starting to jump away. There's a timer counting down and everyone is just clearly exhausted. And then in Baltar's head, we have him wearing his pinstripe suit, his very sexy Baltar pinstripe suit, and Head 6 in her very sexy red dress, talking.
Calm yourself.
I'll be fine. It's all right. Look, I'm a bisexual. They're both very hot people. What do you want from me? Yes, Head 6 is talking about God, how God has a plan for everything, whereas Baltar says that he believes in the rational. And 6 says, I love you, that's not rational. And Baltar says, but you're not a rational being and you're also not really here. So setting up sort of thematics for the episode.
So,
yes.
Couple of things I want to jump in right off the bat. It is always risky opening an episode in a way that makes you immediately go, what the fuck is going on? That is a risky thing to do. If you can pull it off, it works well. I do think this pulls it off.
Yes.
That having been said, there's a very specific thing, like, I'm just going to call it Baltar's Mind Palace.
Yes.
Good phrasing. Perfect phrasing. 10 out of 10.
It is very detailed because what we'd had before was him having his visions of Head 6, in the space that he was actually in. And that will happen here as well. But this is not him remembering being back on Caprica with her. This is him imagining that space wholesale and having new interactions with her. Now, that in and of itself, because Jesse and I went back and forth on this, how the miniseries, how it depicted Head 6 at different times leaned more towards implying she was only in his head or that she was what she claimed to be, which was some kind of chip that had been implanted. Now, how detailed this whole thing is would, by its nature, lean towards the idea of her being completely in his head. Because obviously, he has a very vivid imagination and can fabricate a hell of a lot of stuff. That having been said, I realized something that happened in the miniseries that if she is strictly in his head, does not track.
Yeah.
Because we talked about some things before that leaned one way or the other, but they could still be argued either way. I realized something that I don't think there's an argument to be made that she's totally in his head with this. Because one of the things we touched on was whether or not she gave him any information that he could not have intuited or known subconsciously. She did. We just didn't catch it.
Oh, what was it?
There's 12 models of Cylon.
Does she tell him that?
Yes. There are 12 models. I am the 6th.
But she says, no, she says that before the explosion.
She doesn't. No, she doesn't. No, she tells him that in his vision when he's on Colonial 1. Because he's sitting there, because this is after they have gotten off the ship. I am pretty sure.
I'd have to double check. I think it might be before that, but I'm not 100%
on that. You know what? I'll tell you what. I'm going to pull. I'm going to pull it.
Yeah. While you do that, I will quick say I really like this opening because it is exactly you say. I have no idea what the fuck's going on, and that you're able to like slowly figure out what's happening, like based on context clues. Like everyone's sort of tension, everyone's tired.
They look so tired. Yeah. They look so tired.
Yeah, I love how well they act that. Like literally, like throughout the episode, we don't need to keep calling, but I love throughout the episode you just see people like just like sitting back in their chair, like, dear God, I want to die.
Yeah, seriously, everyone just sleeping in their seats in the CIC and everything. That's really good.
What do you think, Erin? Do you have anything?
No, I mean, I think it's brilliant. And I was trying to think too, like with the mini series, Caprica, I'm sorry, Head 6 doesn't get into.
Okay. Jesse did the same thing twice, calling Head 6 Caprica. And
don't read into it, Vera.
You tried to brush this off last time, and now we're having a guest making the exact same
I have
mistake.
no idea
You
what
are
you're talking-
really going to try and tell me to brush that off and not read into that when it's now not just you doing it.
Genuinely, I would say it's more fan colloquialism than anything. As the stories start to unfold, you already know there's multiple Cylons out there,
Yes.
right? There's multiple ones. And there you've got to start delineating them as multiples start showing up. So
Head 6 is the name of one. There may or may not be a Caprica 6 at some point. So that's all I'll say. Anyways, you were saying it.
I so naturally like say that now, honestly, even if it's just the Mind Palace, like whatever it is, like that's just how I refer to her.
Yes. I've been trying not to spoil Vera. It's so hard.
I'm so sorry.
You're good.
I'm not really spoiling anything by saying that.
Yes.
I think it's just because colloquially I'm just Caprica 6. Anyway.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, doing my best. We're doing great. Off to a good start. No, but like, so 6 doesn't go into religion. We have that sort of moment a little bit. There's a couple allusions to it in the miniseries, but like this is kind of the first treatise we got of her alluding to like a god, capital G God, whereas we see everyone else talking about the lords of Kobol. We have those prayers and all of those, and so you're starting to see this like dichotomy of religions pop up, and I think they lean into it a little bit more in this episode, but especially at the beginning with her talking about believing in God or not.
It sets up the thematics of the episode really well, because like this whole bit, like we're setting up the tension of the episode of like the spoilers we'll get to in a second, but like the Cylons come every 33 minutes, and they've been coming every 33 minutes for 237 jumps now, which is several days, and no one's had sleep, no one's had anything, so we're setting all that up here in this beginning, but also that conversation about like her saying God, her sort of like conversation on like God has a plan for everything and him being rational, is the like conversation this whole episode is sort of built upon with his character. Like it's just the themes of like, do we believe that there is a plan for everything, or do we believe that everything just is happening coincidentally? And that's sort of like the big setup for like the series in a way too. But it's the big conversation of the episode.
Definitely, yeah.
And like I will just note that the integration of the conversations about God, they're not bad. I will say they feel a hell of a lot more heavy-handed here than they did in the miniseries.
For sure. They stand out a lot more. Yeah.
I would say excessively so, honestly. Like, I get drawing more attention to it because, like, when we did the miniseries, I even said to Jesse that when 6 first started talking about God, and it was the 6 that was actually on Caprica, I remember saying to Jesse, like, I don't know if that's something I should be reading into, or if that is like just something that she's saying to better, integrate into the society. And I was told, oh, no, you should be reading into it. So like, while I'll grant that maybe it was subtle enough in the miniseries that not everyone would have gotten it right off, this still feels a little sledgehammery by the time it's done.
I think part of it is like the show had been off in the air for a year. So like this is the first episode back for a year. And it does integrate more into the plot later on, but does just stay more themey at the top here. So
and also I don't think we need to read too much into the broader society at the time, but this is what, 2004, 2005 or something. This is like the peak conservative Christian movement of the early 2000s. Yes. And so the big capital G God conversations were a lot more prevalent in our media than I think they are now. Like it does every time she starts doing that treatise, like that's what ages the show for me. Like honestly, more than anything, it reminds me of that time in media.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, jumping back into the recap, we have Colonial 1 sort of taking a little bit longer to reboot its FTL, but everyone's sort of like not too concerned, but like we need to get it moving. The Cylons, we do get from Callie in engineering talking to the chief. Like she sort of asked the question, why did the Cylons come every 33 minutes and not 34? And as sort of Colonial 1's taking time, Adama has the line of like, we're getting slower. and they say maybe this time. So it's like this repeated refrain of like maybe this time the Cylons won't be coming. But the Cylons do come in. Adama has like just sort of deadpan says not this time, maybe the next, and then they sort of they jump and get ready for the next cycle. So they get away, but we sort of get the sense that like they are getting tired, they are getting slower, things are slowing down as we start off the episode.
Can I just say like my favorite moment, like right before this jump, because there's a little bit of time where it's unsure if the Caprica 1 FTL, like they're having to reboot their system.
Mm-hmm.
And so my favorite moment is you hear the pilot on Colonial One. It's just in that standard pilot voice. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid the Cylons have appeared again. However, our FTL drive is now working and we will be jumping momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. It's perfect.
I fucking love it. It's
so good.
It's such an absurd moment. I really like it.
And I think it does well at the world building, at least the reminder of it, that like they are literally, this would like be being stuck on an airplane and there's like nowhere to sleep. And there's, everyone you see just sleeping in their seats.
Yeah, I love that bit.
Yeah, it's just emphasizing that like, yeah, we're just on an airplane. It's just a space plane and this sucks.
Mm-hmm. All right. We jump back in. We have a little bit of combat between the Cylons and everything. And the only thing I'll note before they do get away. They restart the clock at 33 minutes. Baltar goes back to sleep, and he and Six start having sex because early 2000s.
And the other thing I'll note is, and I'm sure they got away with this fine at the time because, as you said, the miniseries was about a year distance. But I did notice they reused the landing footage of the Vipers coming back in.
Yeah, save that budget where you can.
Hey, no, I respect the hustle. I'm just saying it's way more noticeable if you go straight from the miniseries.
Did you talk about the cut corners?
No.
Have you talked about the cut corners?
Of the paper? No.
Yeah, do you know why they're all cut?
No, I did not know
It's because when they were making the pilot, the studio told Ron D. Moore to cut corners. And so I'm not even kidding. And so it was like, heh, heh, heh. And like did that on all the paper that they had. And then it became like one of the most expensive bits because then they had to like make frames with corners like cut. They had to make sure they did it on everything. But that's the cutting corners. Like it was so expensive, and so yeah, they filmed it, use it.
So good.
That's brilliant.
We do get a quick little thing where like Baltar and him have sex. They say, no, you're not safe. No, of course not. The Cylons will follow us again. Eventually, they make a mistake and kill us all, but not for another 33 minutes. Baltar says. We do get our first look at the Battlestar Galactica opening credits. What did you think about them, Vera?
They're pretty good. I did notice like they were very tactical in the images used, like because standard when the score really kicks in, they start rapid cutting stuff in. I did notice that most of the images that ended up being used were either from the miniseries or from this episode.
Yep. That is so you'll start to notice, actually, I'll say this here, every episode when they do that kicks into gear moment, it's always a footage only from the episode that you're watching.
Really?
Every time.
That's a very cool approach. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you get a little like tease of what's coming up. The only thing, we'll get there. I'll talk about when we get there. But yeah, I like that a lot. All right, we have Adama and Ty talking in their room. I say that, but Ty is basically falling asleep in his chair. And Adama's shaving, and he's sort of coming up with a plan. He's like, we're going to divide the fleet into 6 groups. We'll jump 2 more times and rendezvous at a common set of coordinates. And Ty's like, well, we'll have to plot 24 jumps for that. We can barely do it 1 in every 33 minutes. So you get that sense of like exhaustion that everyone's working under the pressure. They have to be on all 33 minutes.
Well, and I like the mechanics too that they've introduced now with the hint that the Colonial One's FTL is like starting to fail, and then the fact that this takes so long, like to plot, and then to execute that 33 minutes is actually tight. People can't go take a nap for 25 minutes and then come back and do this. Like, that's just kind of cool world building technology, sci-fi wise, of just like what it means to go faster than light in this world.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I think they actually do a decent job covering it by the time we were done. But I did at first think, I'm like, okay, I buy that there's some positions who can't get sleep, but I feel like there's got to be some who can do shifts.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, the pilots I get, because if they are about to have a fleet of Cylons jump, they need every ship they can get. Like, so that I get. If they've only got a handful of people who can do the plotting and they need to double check their work, okay, I get that. But like, if the plan is just jump every time, frankly, Adama could be resting. Like, I would think some of the ground crew in the hangar bay could be resting. But that having been said, I think the whole episode does a good enough job of, laying out how it is impacting everybody. And like Erin actually said, emphasizing the fact that there isn't actually a place to sleep on Colonial One, and people are just kind of propped up in their chairs. And it kind of brings to mind that whole thing on airlines where it's like, I could sleep, but I'm not gonna.
I can never sleep on an airline. I learned that
Me
yesterday.
neither.
I reiterated that yesterday. I can never sleep on an airline. It's rough.
Like, I will pass out for a half hour, maybe, if I am properly exhausted, but I can't actually get sleep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same.
We have Apollo giving a speech to the Viper pilots. Everyone's clearly exhausted. He said, let's make it to 238. So, stay safe. I forget exactly his line, but it's something to the case like, be careful or something along those lines. And then they all touch a picture of a pilot. I think it's Hilo, but I couldn't tell for sure.
I couldn't tell either. I actually wrote down, who the hell is that picture?
I think yeah, because I was trying to get a better look at it because I didn't remember that, but I think it might be Hilo, but it just looks like Caprica in the background. Like, that's what I think it was more of just like in remembrance, because they were like, never forget, as they were passing by, they were saying that, and so I read that as more like what we left behind type thing.
It's also like
a
9/11 thing. Like,
yeah, I got what the gesture was. It was one of those things where I'm left wondering, am I supposed to know who that is? Because I didn't.
Yeah, it was either Hilo or like just a vague pilot of like never forget who got killed, and I think it's supposed to be like a 9/11-y kind of oblong reference sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because that was also something. I think there was like the T-shirts that said "Never Forget" or whatever for like 9/11 or whatnot.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff that said "Never Forget" for 9/11.
Look, I was a kid. I forgot. So,
you goddamn zygote.
That's so funny.
Fucking fetus.
Yeah.
Fine to make 9/11 jokes now, right? Is that okay? We at that spot.
Too soon.
We then cut to Boomer. Sorry, I wrote Sam Whitwer. Cut to Boomer.
Damn it.
Yeah, we cut to Boomer.
No, Erin, you were right. She told him there were 12 models back when they were still on Caprica. I was scanning through while we were talking through all this. I could have sworn that conversation happened on Colonial One.
I was fairly sure it wasn't because I would have caught.
No, my brain got that mixed up. Damn it. Okay.
So
I retract my 20-minute ago observation.
That's what you get for being a confident asshole, Vera. That's what you get. And I get another number. All right.
One of these days she'll learn.
No, I won't. I'll never learn. It's fine.
I am more than happy to keep training you
for as long as it takes.
This is what I'm saying when we end up hitting on each other, and this is just how it goes, Erin.
I'm delighted. This is a front row seat. I'm here for it.
I love turning on this voice. I'm a professional, and I know the impact that it has on certain kinds of people.
No, bad.
People like Jesse, who want to be reassured that they're good. Don't you?
I hate you so much. Anyways, Sam Witwer is in the show now.
Is in this. Sam
Yes.
Witwer is in this.
Yes. Crash. I don't think they say his name, but he is called
They don't,
Crash
which is
Town.
why it took me a hot second to figure out who played him, because I was like, shit, I don't know what name I'm looking at.
Yep. Sam Witwer.
Because I was like, I know that guy. And then I had to look up where I know him from. And it's one of those things where like, oh, I've seen him in like 2 things and heard him in 50.
Yeah,
1,000. Yeah.
He is
Yeah.
famously the voice of Darth Maul in Star Wars: The Clone Wars and a billion other things, but like that was his other big thing that sort of got him a lot of attention. But yeah, he's sort of like saying as a rumor, like, hey, did you hear the Cylons look like us now? He sort of said like, oh, we left. He's sort of referencing the fact that we left. Oh God, what's his name? The politician-y dude. Back on the station.
That's good enough for
Ed.
me.
Yeah, I've heard his name. But politician.
You said his name like 50 times.
I know, because I liked him. I like his character a decent amount, actually. But I forget his name. But the silent model that they left on the station at the end of the miniseries. But yeah, so he heard about that, but it's still just rumor at this point that Cylons look like humans. And Boomer, who we know is a Cylon,
Yes.
yells at him, and Chief Tyrrell, seriously, Chief Tyrrell, get him confused with Ty. Chief Tyrrell overhears this, and he sort of like goes to comfort her because she's clearly upset about Hilo, she sort of yells at him as well. But then she apologizes as he leaves. So she's clearly actually feeling upset about Hilo being left behind on Caprica in the miniseries. So. Any thoughts on that, Vera? I'm curious your thoughts on that with her being a Cylon. So.
I mean, I don't really have any because I am presuming, since the idea was already introduced, I am currently presuming that she doesn't know and that they're doing the sleeper agent thing. If for no other reason, then it would just make the infiltration easier for her to do. Like it's not even necessarily a storytelling thing, just pure tactical options. If they have the ability to have her not know until activated, that's just a better idea.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say either way, but
and not to mention based off stuff that happens later, which granted we only kind of have an idea of what exactly was going on, but given the way things pan out for when eventually the Cylons stop coming, like if she was fully aware that she was a Cylon and was an active infiltrating agent, then the way the plot of this episode resolves shouldn't work.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's true. So, all right. We do have a quick little scene where Duala goes to like an office where apparently they're sort of like seeing if they can like connect people with survivors, find other survivors. She brings a photo of her family from Sagittarion, but the person sort of running the office is like, we can't transmit photos right now. So just either leave the photo with us or put it up on the board. And she goes out into the hallway, and we see the hallways are lined with tons and tons of photos of sort of people like looking for missing family members.
That was a very powerful moment. I knew it was coming, and it still gave me chills.
Yeah,
that was a lot of pictures, and it honestly, it might even be more effective than showing the bodies kind of in the hangar, which they did in the miniseries. Although that one was effective partly because I was just surprised they did it at all. This is a bit more in line with the way I would expect losses to be represented, but they just went for scale, and it works. It works quite well.
And what I like about it too is it's not just like death, but it's the people it's the people on Galactica exclusively who are missing connections. And so it's like it's not only just like, oh, look at all the dead. It's like, look at all the like missing people that people are hoping to find. Like there's a sense of like hope and loss and like connection there that I think is emotionally more resonant and rougher than just like, oh, look at all these dead bodies or look at all these people who died.
Well, because too, I may be jumping the gun, but I thought we already had at least one mention of it where they're trying to get a population count.
Yes.
And this drives that home even more, that you realize it's like approximately 50,000 people split up in all of these different ships. And so it makes sense that the handful of folks we would see running things on Galactica wouldn't know if some of their family was on or not. And I mean, how, it would be one of those things where it's like, maybe it's an aunt, maybe it's a cousin, all of these. So
yeah. And it also goes into like the chaos of like not knowing anything either, of like this idea that like there are only 50,000 of them, but like they don't know who's who yet. Like it gets the idea is like you could, like, your entire family could be alive, but like there's just not a like head count or a
census
to like even know that yet. So
yeah.
So anyway, speaking of which, we do jump over to President Roslyn and Billy, her assistant, who gives her an update on the head count, and he sort of gives her a number, and she says, how did we lose 300? We learned that there was some deaths and wounds. People went missing after the last jump. There were some overcounts. And so she goes over to the board that she has. She has a little whiteboard in the background, and she updates the number to 49,998 is all that's left of humanity on the fleet.
And Jesse had told me about this before I even started watching it, that the show keeps track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unlike Star Trek Voyager, the show keeps track.
Well, and like, but I think I'm trying to organize my thoughts. What's so cool is the fact, like, not only do they keep track, but even just in this one episode, I noticed like those 33-minute clocks are accurately counting down in the background of every scene, which is a bonkers level of production detail. Like, you would just
can't even
put
imagine
one clock over there and cut to it occasionally, but they actually have at almost every single angle there is a clock counting down 33 minutes accurately, so we know where we're at.
Yeah, and about half of them are analog clocks too.
Yeah. It's wild level of production detail. Do you like President Roslyn? Because she's my favorite human to ever exist, and I will worship her like a queen to the end of my days.
I like her so far. Like it's very early in the show for me to be picking favorites.
That's right.
At all. But I like her so far. There is a really good layer of again, something that Jesse and I were kind of talking about last time. There's a really good layer of showing that she is capable of more than you would assume, given her background, because like the very lazy way to do this would have been she's all empathy and, we have to save people, humanity, like all the time. And Adama's like, no, and he's always making the hard decisions. That would be the lazy writer's way to do this.
Agreed.
But by showing right from the miniseries that she is capable of making those very difficult decisions, it sets her up as a more nuanced character and hopefully sets up whatever, because I assume these two are going to butt heads eventually and repeatedly. But it sets it up to be a more nuanced way in which they will clash rather than just opposing ideologies butting heads over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As we'll see again later in this episode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we cut from that to Baltar and Six in his mine palace again. And she asks him, do you want children? Procreation was one of God's commandments. And he's like, oh, I'm sure you'll get a little walking toaster one day. She says, no, I want us to have a child, Gaius, which already sets into the idea that like Cylons and humans can have babies, question mark?
I'm just gonna go ahead and say I hope not.
I'm not gonna say shit. So
like I will recognize it as a possibility. They are absolutely setting these, at least the human style ones, to be very much in the vein of replicants, which is like, despite mechanical origins, they are, for all intents and purposes, just human beings. So like, I will grant that as possible. I don't want it.
Not gonna say anything.
I'm just saying it right now. I don't want it.
Fair. That's fair.
I don't have a problem with her saying she wants it, because I like the ways in which she unnerves him. Mm-hmm. So I am okay with the idea of being brought up. as a tactic to just drive him up the goddamn wall, as she seems to enjoy doing. I don't really want follow-up on that, though.
Mm-hmm.
We see him, and we're starting to see the cracks, too, of him being so tired and trying to be among people with her in his mind and have conversations and not be so weird that he's having, like, a wet dream in front of like an elderly couple sitting across from him.
And he's not managing it great because like he walks away and Rosalind turns to her assistant and goes, he's an odd one, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she says that at one point. I also I had that thought, I'm like, dude must be just like, sorry, as my brain goes, dude was just walking out with like a huge erection everywhere he goes.
I think they boldly give us a wide shot of him after one of this. I looked.
Yeah, of course.
It wasn't obvious.
It's like,
it's not to say anything.
Think of a grandma. Like in every episode, he's just like, Jesus Christ.
But that absolutely crossed my mind too.
If you have tight enough underwear and you line it so it's straight up and down vertical, it's not too noticeable.
No, it's not a dead giveaway, but it crossed my mind.
Do you think he's doing the trans thing of tucking? You know, he's just learning from the trans community?
Honestly, he might have to learn how to just so he is not walking around with a perma boner.
Amazing.
Aren't you glad you guessed on this, Erin?
So good. I always want to think about Baltar's perma boner.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Love it. But yes, we do start to hear about the fact that there is this Dr. Amarok from calling to speak to the president, saying he has really important information for her and wants to speak with her. She says, no, we'll talk to him after the next jump. There's not enough time for him to get here now. But Baltar is worried about this and he mentions to the president, like, oh, I worked with him on the security team, and Head 6 sort of mentions to him, it's like, oh, I was worried that he was onto us, so there is potential that Amarok knows that Baltar is a traitor. So that's sort of something that he is nervous about.
As he should be. I mean,
yeah.
I think it sets it up well that I like the fact that Baltar in the miniseries was an unwitting agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it's like, because then he is genuinely questioning everything, where he's like, was that a thing that I was made to do? Yeah, and so like that sets up that tension really well to just be like, oh god, how sloppy was I? I don't know if I was sloppy or not.
Oh, Baltar's the sloppiest.
He's so sloppy.
He's the sloppiest man.
He is a messy bitch.
Very messy bitch. We then cut to Cylon occupied Caprica, where we see that Hilo is still alive, his 6th day on Caprica. We see from the subtitles, and he is being chased by a giant metal CGI Cylons who don't entirely look like they're there in the rain, but we forgive early 2000s CGI. He clearly leads this one into a trap, so we get that.
Okay. So it was surprising for him to be alive.
I will say, I believe, I need to double, Erin, maybe you remember this. I believe he was supposed to be dead, and they brought him back when they were doing the series, because like, we need to, if I recall, the intention was that he was going to be dead, and then when they were making the show, they're like, oh, we should bring him back so that we could show what's going on Caprica. If I recall.
I feel like that's correct as well. Mm-hmm. There were multiple changes that they made to the intent and then what the show ended up being. Like the kid, I don't know if you remember the kid from the miniseries. Mm-hmm. Never wasn't in this episode.
Yeah, he's never coming back. He's never coming back. Yeah, Boxy, because he was a character from the original show. That they did, and they were like, yeah, fuck that, we're not gonna have a kid. This doesn't
work. And so like the fact that, so we already know that they did reorganize some of their plans for the show based on
and like I'm not gonna bemoan them that. I will say that I actually thought Boxy kind of worked in the miniseries, but I could see if they were trying to figure out shit to do with this kid for full seasons, I'm like, oh no, that's probably a bad idea. Mm-hmm. So all right. My first immediate question was, how the fuck is he still alive? That is a question I get an answer to relatively quickly, because he has, well, not only is he running away, he has anti-radiation doses that he's running out of, but he does have them. So that's why he's still running around. So the question I am currently left with, based off this, because there's got to be stuff that happens later, I'm like, why? And again, I don't have a problem with the fact that I'm asking why. I just would like reassurance from the show later that it has answers. Okay, so the thing with me, Erin, when it comes to like things like I don't know why that's happening, after being a fan of Doctor Who for as long as I have been, I don't always need answers, but I do need the reassurance that the show understands the question is there and is valid, even if it's not going to answer it, because otherwise I can't tell the difference between an unanswered question and a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
That's I know exactly what you mean. Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get an answer to how he's still alive. The thing that I'm currently wondering is, why the fuck are there ground troops from the Cylons on here when they have just bombed the entire planet and they could just wait out radiation? And so far as we are currently aware, the point is just to wipe out humanity. Why would you even bother with ground troops?
It's a good question.
That is a very good question.
Again, don't need an answer yet. It's early.
Yeah.
I would like an eventual reassurance from the show that an answer exists, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Sounds good.
That's all we should say. We can yell in spoilers.
I like Hilo though. I mean, I'm glad they didn't get rid of him. He's likable. It was interesting to see him be soldiery and yeah.
I always describe him as he's just like a good little puppy dog man. He's just like, you just want to pinch your cheeks. You're just little Hilo.
He's our BSG himbo.
Yeah,
yep.
Exactly. He is our BSG himbo. I love it. It's basically a great description of Hilo. We then cut to Adama and Ty get a briefing from Dee in the hallway. We hear that people are having nervous breakdowns. Adama orders them to start taking stimulants and sort of set up a rotation of that. Ty points out that it's going to bite them in the ass when they do that, but they're going to do it anyways. And then Adama asks Ty, is this my 10 minutes or is it yours? And Ty says it's yours. He goes to bed and Dee says, it's actually your turn, Ty. And Ty says, if he can't remember, then it's his turn. So.
Wait, Ty does a decent human being thing. Whoa, that's nice.
Good to see. Love it. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's I forgot how much I love Ty. Honestly, like
he's
rewatching this
character, yeah,
it's so complicated, and I have my feelings about him change within episodes, and it's great.
Mm-hmm. I will be interested to see how the layers are brought in, because miniseries he was just a dipshit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I like this because it shows like he does care for Adama, and that's a redeeming quality of his, and he is. And we get a little scene later on we'll talk about that shows like he's an ass with intention at times, but he's not a completely inhuman monster, which I like these little moments for. So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. We then cut to Starbuck and Apollo. Starbuck is adamantly, I'm not going to take the stims. And Apollo's kind of light and pressuring her to do it. And then she gets angry at him saying, you are the CAG. Act like one. We're not friends. You said, be careful out there when you should have said good hunting. So when one of your officers, and she's talking about herself, but she's talking about herself in the third person, one of your officers says like she's not going to take your stims, you tell her to say she needs to say yes, sir, or you slap her and make her take them. And then, so she gets very angry at him in his face, but then they sort of laugh it off. And he sort of says, glad I'm not working for you. Damn right, you're glad. And then she says, I'll take my pills.
So first of all, I am glad that they broke the tension with the laugh. That was actually a real good call. I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you get out of that scene otherwise, other than him shoving the pills down her throat and her going, thank you, daddy, because that was kind of the energy of the scene.
Shove those pills down my throat. I just need my stims.
She was bratting so hard. She wanted him to discipline her. She wanted punishment. Like,
well, the best choice that she made in that was when she takes them and she bites on the pills, because it's like you could either like do the sort of like just swallow them dry or whatever, but like that scene of just biting into them while keeping eye contact was so badass and so great.
She's such a fucking brat.
So good.
I do like this scene though, beyond just the brattiness and the sexual tension. In that like she actually the complaint is legitimate of like we're life or death here, and like you can't be everyone's friend. You gotta be a leader.
Yeah.
So I did like that beat. That will
I like
subtly
that
come up
beat
later on.
especially as a way of doing this, because like this note is
Mhm.
very, it's almost a cliche note of, you know, the person who was rank and file getting moved up, and like, well, you have to learn you're not everybody's friend anymore. You got to be like it is such a rote beat in that journey. I like this way of doing it, of having it boil down to this one interaction with this one person who can make the point to him, so he doesn't have to go through the standard big lesson of the episode kind of thing that normally would mark this kind of beat.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not even a C plot, really. It's just color on what the pilots are going through, and it's great.
Yeah. And it's like, because it makes sense to have the beat. Like I kind of sounded like I was bemoaning it as a plot beat. It makes sense. It makes sense most times it comes up. It's just the way that it is dealt with is very rote most of the time. This is a really good way of hitting that. What is, I think, certainly in other circumstances, a necessary plot beat, but not one worth dragging out. So I like the way of doing it.
And I like, we'll get to it, but I'll save it for later. But I like how it subtly comes back up later without us needing to be like beat it on the nose, of like just being very clear. Like there's an emotional beat for Apollo later on that like hints at it, but doesn't like go like this is about this is a resolution of that arc, and I like that. All right. We then cut to the scene that you mentioned earlier where Hilo is taking radiation meds. He looks very sickly though. And then he sees a number six, not the number 6 that we know, at least not for sure, but a number 6 wearing a white coat staring at him in the forest. And then he turns around and he's captured by one of the big CGI metal Cylons. So he is captured. We then cut to the Galactica jumping right away as Cylons attack, and they start another round of 33 marks. I am just gonna say this right here. We don't need to make a big thing of it, but like this show, and I noted it throughout all of the miniseries. This show loves to have Galactica make last second jumps. Like every time they jump, there's always a missile just about to hit them.
Yeah. The missiles are already en route.
Yeah, every time.
It's a cool visual, but yeah, it is becoming the standard.
Yeah, it's like 4 or 5 times it's already happened. Like they did it like 3 times in the miniseries. I'm like, all right, we get it. We have them jump, but then Dee realizes that one of the civilian ships is missing, one called the Olympic Carrier. And they get left behind, and we learned that there was 1,300 or so souls left aboard. Ty gives like a very angry speech of like, people die, like we're still expected to do our jobs. We don't know, and like there's a whole point that he sort of makes with these like 50 things could have happened. We don't know what it is. We're expected to still do our jobs. And then Adama kind of silently sort of says, "We make mistakes, people die. There aren't many of us left." And I like that as like a juxtaposition between the two. Like Ty is like really bombastic, like the villain to everybody and like yelling at them, and Adama's like the disappointed dad. I'm like, Dad, oh man, that's made Dad sad. He's just not. He's not angry. He's just disappointed.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Dad's too tired to be angry.
Yeah. Dad needs to go sleep. Just let me just go have a nap. But you need to get your grades up, kid.
Stop peeking on my life.
We then cut to Roslin updating the numbers again after the loss of the 1,300 from the Olympic Carrier. We hear that Dr. Amarak he was on the Olympic Carrier. Baltar's sort of listening into this, so they can't get Dr. Amarak now.
Yes, isn't that convenient?
Convenient
plot is convenient, almost as if God did it. Speaking of transitions, I'm good at them. Anyways, back in Baltar's mind palace, Head 6 starts arguing God is watching you, and sort of says like, oh, the fact that Amarak is gone is a sign that God is looking out for you. And Baltar sort of argues back as like, look, the universe is a complex system. This is just a serendipitous event. There's no connection. And Caprica 6, or sorry, Head 6. it's shut up. It's sort of at his blasphemy said, God can give and he can take away. So yeah, so again, we sort of get this. This is where that sort of thematic tie comes in. To the question of like, is there a God or isn't there? Is this just serendipity, or is there an actual connection?
Love it. Mystery set.
And it also asks the questions too of like, are the Cylons, because you could ask like, are the Cylons choosing to do this? Because if she's in his head, the question you could ask is like, did the Cylons do that to intentionally help Baltar? And then Head 6 is saying that to be like, get him to believe it was God rather than the Cylons, which is an interesting sort of question that sort of ties into the intention there, which I liked. All right. They do the next jump. They're about to make the next jump at 33 minutes, but no Cylons come. And they say, all right, we're going to wait it out. We're going to see what happens. We go 45 minutes plus, and everyone's like sleeping on the bridge, but there's still no Cylons.
Well, see, here's the thing. You say sleeping on the bridge, but it's like a little bit after this, they'll start like figuring out a rotation for people to rest. But I love that like they pass the 33-minute mark and it's continuing to count, and they don't relax immediately.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah. You actually, the look on Adama's face, he almost looks more tense than when they showed up every 33 minutes, because at least there he knew what was going on. Now they passed the 33 minutes and he doesn't know if that means they're actually clear or not. And you can tell that uncertainty is driving him up the fucking wall.
Yeah. 1000%. Yeah. So good. And then you realize too, as an audience member, you're also like, oh God, what do you do? What do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you relax? Well, they could show up. If you relax, that's when they're going to show up. Like, that's
like,
great.
Oh, we wanted this for so long. And then you're like, oh, we can get sleep. Nope. So, but
opposite of that.
Yep. I do love the background extras though, because there's like people like kind of like half asleep in the background that I do really like. Like it's clearly like this like 45 minutes have passed. Like, all right. But yeah, he calls Adama calls Rosalind. And she sort of says, we got people on the verge, and Adama says, we'll go to condition 2 and take advantage of this and let people rest. And Rosalind's sort of like, well, what's condition when do we leave us condition 2? And Adama sort of gets kind of aggressive with that a little bit, where he says, when I'm satisfied they're no longer coming, this is a military decision. And she's like, yep, no, I defer to your decision, and let your crew know how grateful I am. So we get that bit. I really loved this because it showcases like Adama still kind of being tense. Like she doesn't question him at any point, but he's still kind of tense on the whole, like, this is my decision. Like he's trying to like set the boundaries of the relationship. And
she's like, I know. I'm just asking questions. Like, I'm not questioning you. I just want to know what the plan is. Yeah.
I like that sort of like miscommunication between the two of them. It's like very well handled, of like you see where Adama's sensitivities are on this.
Well, it also works because everyone's sleep deprived. I think it would have felt a little bit like a contrived conflict, like what the hell, what bug flew up his ass if there wasn't the circumstances of everybody sleep deprived and everybody's tense, so that this beat plays like the kind of tension that would probably not, I'm not going to say not be there, but would be something they were all kind of keeping a lid on, but for the circumstances.
Yeah.
It's very well handled. Apollo orders his crew to land, except for him, Starbuck, and Boomer, and crash down in the Raptor, because they're all on stims. His patrol is 100% stimulated, he said. There is a joke that someone mentions where like they say Boomer's holding up better than anyone else in the squad, and someone says it's because she's a Cylon. Yuck, yuck, yuck.
Yes, the Starbucks says that.
So,
and I did note, at least so far as I could tell, Boomer did not flinch from that, which again, to me, granted, we're early enough in the show, I don't know how good these things are at infiltrating, if they actually like know what they are. Because Erin Dorrell, which was the name you couldn't remember.
That's it. Yep. Another Erin. Gotta love it.
Because you don't have enough Erins in your life.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's true.
I'm surrounded by Erins. A murder of Erins.
because he certainly did his best, but even with Baltar not being the most convincing, he couldn't convince anybody that he wasn't actually a Cylon. And so I don't know how good they are at consciously,
Playing off something.
yeah, like fitting in.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Got
like the only things I have to go off of are Erin Macdonald and six, not head six, but Caprica six. That's all I have to go off of it. Honestly, neither of them were great. They weren't terrible, especially in the case of Erin Macdonald. It's not like you would have guessed in advance, but the minute you find out, you're like, oh yeah, actually there were signs of that.
Mm-hmm.
So with Boomer not even like flinching or even a dart of the eyes, that to me lends more credence to the idea that she is a sleeper agent and does not know.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah. Good. We then cut to Ty and Adama having a quick little conversation. And Ty sort of says, I feel more alive than I have in years. And Adama says, it's good to see you without the cup in your hand. And Ty sort of says, well, if the crew doesn't hate the XR, he's not doing his job. My job is to make the old man look good. And Adama sort of like starts this question of like, if you push your crew too far, it's one thing to push me or the crew. It's another thing to break them. So again, pointing out like Ty is sometimes too harsh, and Adama's like recognizes it, but sort of is like trying to talk to his friend about it. But at that exact moment, the Olympic carrier comes back, and Adama immediately orders everyone back to action stations and puts 33 minutes on the clock. So just immediately sort of like, something weird's going down.
I like the adding the 33 minutes. That was a cool thing that he did that as an audience member, I'm like, that guy's smart.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's on his game. I wouldn't have thought to do that immediately.
I wouldn't have either. Yeah.
And once he says it, you're like, oh, good idea, Dad.
Mm-hmm. Like check on that shit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We then cut to Baltar and Six. And they're talking about like why they're showing up now. It's like, oh, this is God's punishment for your lack of faith, she says to him. And
this was the point where it started to feel a little heavy-handed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And yeah, Baltar starts basically saying that the Olympic carrier should be destroyed because that means the Olympic carrier probably has Cylon agents. They've been tracking the ship. We then cut to Boomer, Starbuck, and Apollo. They go and check out the Olympic carrier. They start talking to the people on it, and they sort of ask them, like, where were you? It said, oh, we had a problem with our FTL. It took 3 hours to fix. The Cylons just broke off. The gods were watching out for us. And we have a Dr. Emerok on board. He wants to speak to the president. He has some information about a traitor in our midst. Immediately at that, not suspicious at all, Baltar stands up. And sort of like tries to play it off, but like stands up to the president and says, like, look, Cylons must be tracking them all along. We need to destroy that ship. We need to get rid of it. They could send us, like, cut off all contact. They could send us another virus to blow us out of the sky. And Adama is inclined to agree with this. And the president sort of agrees and allows that to happen. Someone says, I think someone says to Baltar, thank the gods you're with us. And he says, God's got nothing to do with it.
So this kind of does make it the second go in a row where Baltar's decision, like, to try and cover his own ass does coincidentally happen to line up with stuff happening in a way that people aren't going to question what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So this is twice in as many episodes for all intents and purposes. And
squirrely little man.
Well, like, obviously the show is addressing it insofar as it is the claim of Head Six that this isn't just luck, this is God. But like, come on though. Mm-hmm. But like, logistically, come on though.
Well, what I like is I think it speaks more to his character in the sense of, like, this dude has always just failed up. He's just always failed up. At no point is he may be smart, but it's like his whole life has been a series of luck that has got him to where he is.
And honestly, on that note, something I've been looking for, and I was kind of rewatching this, and it's because it's something that you and I talk about, Erin. a decent amount. But like, I'm like looking at this, I'm like, because when I remember watching the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, Baltar's just the smartest guy. He's just must be the most intelligent man. Rewatching this now as an adult, older, I'm like, he's probably just a mediocre dude. He's probably a mediocre dude and a mediocre scientist who just, as you said, failed his way up and just knows how to squirrel his way out of whatever and say whatever to get what he wants. And that's sort of an interesting take because, like, I remember as a kid I took for granted that sort of like, yeah, he's the smartest one, of course he is, and now I'm not getting that read at all, which is interesting.
See, I would say he's clever, he's not smart.
Right. Savvy. And I think trying to think of how, because I was already in college doing a physics degree surrounded by scientists. I knew like 5 Baltars. They hadn't earned that.
Yeah,
they weren't that smart.
Yeah, I was still in high school, middle school, something like that. So yeah, in like a small school. So.
But it's a cool observation of how the material changes, and I think societally too. You know, we have these quote giant ass air quotes unquote geniuses that aren't.
Yeah,
so.
I wonder who he could be assuming which failed man who sold himself as a scientist kept failing fuck upwards. And he doesn't know shit.
Yep. Anyway, enough about that. Carrying on.
Certain Musk in here. Anyways.
Yeah, right.
The swastika. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
what?
Exactly.
We're not political here. We get very political on this pod. Aaron, we get very political on this pod.
Unabashedly so. We gave our token apologies like last episode for like
nice.
The fact that we will bring politics into it. But like if you stuck around after the first 2 episodes where we did the miniseries, like you should know by now. Don't complain.
Right.
Yeah, Babylon 5 is all about the rise of fascism, and that didn't connect at all.
Right.
A few years as we covered it. Anyways, back to the show. We then have Boomer cutting off contact, and they sort of are telling the Olympic carrier to maintain present course, do not approach the fleet. But the Olympic carrier just keeps going. They Apollo breaks the no contact rule just for them and says, like, you know, warn them to stop their engines. They don't. They're heading right for the ship. He says fire across their bow. They still don't stop. You know, they're in. Apollo calls to the Galactica, tells them this. Adama sort of says prep the order for their next jump. The Cylons do come in right at 33 minutes after the Olympic carrier arrived. And we also get a radiological alarm on the Olympic carrier, so they have nukes on board. You know, Baltar, during all of this, is sort of cornered by Caprica's, God damn me, Head 6. And she says,
you know, like, what?
Are you gonna count how many times I fuck up? Oh, god damn it!
We're gonna count those on the tally.
She tells Baltar, you need to repent your choice. It's you either repent or not.
Repent your sins, accept his true love, and you will be saved. I wrote it down.
While this is all going on, there's a cool moment. I like that, like, Apollo's trying to look in the windows of the Olympic carrier, can't see anybody in there. So he's like, is everyone dead? Is everyone not? Are there innocent people on there? We don't know. As soon as Baltar repents, he says, I repent. And not hearing this, but it's at the same moment, Rosalind says to Adama, do it, blow it up. They're ordered to destroy the Olympic carrier. Adama sends the order, leave, looks in the windows, tries to see. Starbuck is like saying, hey, we don't do this. We can't do this. She questions like the order, but Apollo makes the order and chooses to blow it up. And it explodes.
Well, I will note, because I took careful note of this. While Starbuck does voice her objections, once he starts firing, she does too.
Yep.
She's
still. Good moment.
He had to do it first, but she does still do it.
So that's the order. He's doing it. She wasn't able to talk him down, and he fired, so she fires. And I thought that was such a cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, like, while I do really like the visual of him, like, trying to look in the windows, I would think the definitive, okay, we blow this thing up, is the instant that they noted there were nukes on board, because, you know, it's a civilian ship. So if there are nukes on board, Cylons have been on there to put nukes on it. it wouldn't have them otherwise.
I think the question is, it's just that morality panic of like, but there could be 1,300 hostages there,
And again, I think this episode gets away with it again, partially because everybody's sleep deprived. And I think what might have been a very obvious answer of there's a nuke, get rid of it now, like becomes like it's just takes more time.
Processing is fast, yeah.
Yeah, it just takes more time for the synapses to fire. And I think a decision that probably would have been made much faster otherwise just takes a little longer. And it works. It works because of that.
Yeah. And I also like it as like a subtle resolution to Apollo's thing from earlier, as I was saying too. Like it doesn't beat you on the head with it where like it's like him like saying like, shut up, Starbuck, follow order. Like it's not like so making the connection so strong, but you do get the beat of like Starbucks not listening, or Starbucks making the argument against him and he says, do it. And she does. And I like that beat, but it is sort of calling back to like, he has to make the hard choices and not be everyone's friend and not listen to everybody. And I liked that as like a subtle resolution to that, which was good.
Can we also, I think there's so much great acting in this episode, but the repent scene with James Callis, Gaius Baltar, like he's exhausted and he's like tears are streaming down his face. Like this is a broken man by the end of this episode and it's delightful, but he does it so well. I'm just how strung out he must have been as an actor going into that scene to pull that off. It's really good.
James Callis, I like everyone on the show is a fantastic actor. There's generally not a bad one in the bunch, but like James Callis in particular has to do so much shit throughout every episode and he pulls it off real well. So
really does.
Yeah. We then cut back to Caprica, the actual Caprica, and Hilo is captured by a Six. Six comes up to him and says, "Are you alive?" Hilo just sort of says his registration number. He kind of gets the idea that like she's not on the level. He says, "I know who you are, Hilo. I'm a friend." She goes to kiss him, but then she gets shot. And
I was so glad she got shot. I was like, this fucking kissing shit again. God damn it.
Yeah, of course.
God, I fucking hate it.
Poor Trisha Helfer had, like, she was clearly hired for sex appeal. She's a great actress and the character is great. But, like, she just has to fucking kiss every fucking buddy.
She works because she's such a good actress. It would not, like, she had to carry that. And
understand, none of my complaints have to do with her.
I get it, yeah.
This is a writing complaint. Like, give her something fucking else to do.
Exactly.
God damn it.
Agreed.
I was very happy when that scene got cut short because she was shot.
But she is shot by Boomer? Question mark. So yeah, another Boomer is on Caprica and she's like wearing the Caprica or the Galactica gear, looks like Boomer from the Galactica, shows up and rescues Hilo, and they sort of escape. And Hilo's confused why she's even there, but she's the one that rescues him. And clearly think it's the same Boomer from the ship. And as they run away, the another number 6, we assume it's like the same one that downloaded into a new body, but I think that's what
I have my lingering question about that I asked way back in the miniseries. Given that we know there are multiple ones running around at the same time, when any given one goes, do they consolidate into a single mind? Like, or do they keep multiple on completely separate tracks where they're not sharing information? Do they disseminate the knowledge of anyone that has been killed to all the remaining ones? Like, I still have a lot of logistical questions about that.
And those are very good questions.
Good questions.
Yes, very good questions.
Yeah. But now, so this is something that leans in the direction of the kind of thing I need when we are dealing with stuff where, like, I'm not sure why that's happening, because I don't know why they don't just kill Hilo. I don't. That having been said, if they're not just going to kill him and they want to get information out of him, this is a really good tactic for doing it. I still don't know why. I still don't know why they don't just straight up kill him, but for whatever reason they would have for not doing that, this is a real good way to like have him captured in a non-traditional manner and like to have tabs on him the whole time.
And we see the extent to which they understand the mind games, because it's not like it wouldn't have even been as effective if this boomer had just showed up while he was in the forest. He would have been a lot more like, this is what the hell, whatever. But like to have that whole weird moment and then she gets killed and he's rescued by Boomer, then he's even less questioning things. And so, yeah. And all the mind games that we've seen with them with the 33 minutes and everything else, like we know they're good at mind games.
Mm-hmm. So we get that set off. We then cut to Lee and Adama. They've escaped the Cylons. I forgot to mention that earlier, but they blew up the Olympic carrier. And Adama goes to Lee. I like there's a subtle thing here where Lee sees Adama and says, "Sir," and Adama says, "Son." So there's like Lee is sort of still on military standards, where Adama's trying to be more personable to Lee. But
See,
Adama...
it was funny. Like I agree that is what happened. It still took my brain a second because I'm used to this kind of setting that like it's that patronizing thing of like, listen to your son, when it isn't even actually your son. So it took me a second to go like, oh yeah, right, that is actually his son. Okay, that was meant to be a sweet moment. That wasn't a dickhead moment. Right.
No, it was a way of Adama trying to be like, I'm not here as the commander, I'm here as your father sort of moment. And Lee's still kind of standing on like military procedure. So and still kind of has his guard up a little bit around his dad. It's like I just like it because it's like a subtle way of showing that doesn't need to be drawn attention to, but it's a subtle way of showing it in a nice way.
Which, on that note, I kind of feel like they need to establish other reasons for tension between the two of them, because the main one we were given in the miniseries was what happened to Lee's brother, except that in the course of that miniseries, we learned that what he was blaming Adama for was Starbuck's fault. So we need to get some more information for why he would be uncomfortable around his dad, because otherwise, if we don't get something new, I'm going to start having, dude, get the fuck over it energy after a couple of episodes.
I think,
oh, please.
Yeah, my read on it, even at this stage, is more of just like parenting style more than anything. That I don't think it's necessarily like a conflict. I think it's just like they were raised to be very militaristic, and like this was a big value of theirs, and he was never that emotionally open. And Lee is more of a vulnerable little softy and is craving that.
I can buy that. I think this is kind of where the show kind of is being hoisted by its own petard for me, because it did set up in the miniseries a very specific reason for the conflict between the two of them, and that reason had a resolution, but the conflict is continuing.
Well, so here's my read on this. I don't read it as the conflict continuing at all. The way I read this beat is from the miniseries, we learned, like, yes, it was Starbucks' fault that the thing that Lee was directly blaming his dad for. However, Lee also blamed his dad for just instilling that militaristic, like he points out that it's like Zach should have never been a Viper pilot, and yet Adama constantly was putting, he's like, you got to go in the military. Like it was a thing that he instilled in him. So there was still an environment, as you were saying, Erin, that like Adama pushed on Lee and his brother that still led to him being in there. So there's still a little bit of lingering tension between the two of them. And also, theoretically, it's only been a few days since the miniseries. So my read on this is like the tension, like it's kind of resolved. The miniseries kind of ends with like Adama and Lee kind of having this moment where like they can't fully still express things to each other because they're like military dudes, and dudes don't ever want to fucking talk about their feelings. So like this scene comes across to me less as like Lee has a stick up his ass about Adama. Like the way he says sir, but it's not like a rude sir. It's just the airs that he's standing on. And so it reads to me as like he does not know necessarily how to handle Adama as his dad, because they haven't had time to like fully get to that point where he can talk to him as like his dad. So like I don't read this as like the conflict continuing. I just read it as like they still just have shit to like work out in terms of how to be people to each other again.
Well, like, and for clarity, I'm not saying this doesn't work. It does. I'm saying that I don't want the show to keep on this because I'm going to get sick of it.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like, if like nothing happens, I'm not going to say whether or not it does, but if like nothing happens between the two of them and this level of tension kept going, would agree completely.
It's
but I
just
think, like, here it
daddy
works.
love me issues. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a quick little beat here where Adama says, I gave the order, it's my responsibility. And it comes across kind of as like Adama being like, you don't have to carry the burden of the death of those civilians on your conscience. But Lee says, I pulled the trigger, that's mine. So they're both kind of like, I need to be the sad one.
Well, I mean, the thing is, they're both right.
Mhm.
Like, the person who issues the order is responsible, but the person who carries out the order still bears responsibility.
Mhm.
Like, if you did the wrong thing, or even if you did the right thing, but there's collateral damage, if you're the one who did it, you're still responsible for that, even if the order came from above. Like, that's we have like a century worth of military tribunals backing that up. So like, I actually kind of like that the show is emphasizing the fact, like, oh no, they're both gonna have to carry this, because
They will. Yeah. Then we cut to the last scene of the episode where Billy goes to Roslyn, and he says it's been 24 hours, no silence. So at least you know it was the right choice. And Roslyn says, right choice. She sort of leaves to like questions that. Then she says, I'd like some time alone, please. And so Billy gets up to go. But he stops for a second. She says, what is it? And he says, it's an update on the head count. And she says, subtract how many? He says, no, actually add one. A baby was born on the Rising Star. So she says a baby, and then she goes to the board and adds 1 to the population number, 487,973. And that's how we wrap out the episode.
I fucking love this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is, not only is it a real good moment for her, because like she conveys so much with almost no dialogue. So like, as an acting moment, she's fantastic. But even beyond that, it is such an important thing for the show to have at this moment, because as the first episode proper, after a mini series where they just got battered all to hell, and the only hope that the human race was given was openly acknowledged to be bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
To come into the first episode proper, I think it was so important for them to have a genuine moment of hope, to reassure the audience of, no, this is not just going to be a story of death by attrition where they just keep losing a few more people every single time until there's nobody left. No, here's your tangible, quantifiable, but also very symbolic addition of hope, so that, yes, shit sucks. We lost way more people than we gained, but we did still gain somebody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And her reaction to that is just,
oh yeah, she sells the hell out of it.
so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I like that. Just her saying right choice with a question mark. Like, she just puts so much into that, and you don't have to like know her whole thought process. Like, you get that she's wrestling with it. It's so well done.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, this again. Well, to wrap out, any thoughts on this scene? Before we do spoiler minute, and then we after, I didn't tell you this, Erin, but after spoiler minute, we do give our overall thoughts. So, anything on this scene specifically before we wrap out?
I think Vera said exactly how I feel about it. Yeah.
Cool. All righty. Well, before we talk about our whole bits about thoughts about the episode, we're going to do spoiler minute. So for listeners who do not know what that is, and for Erin, who I briefly explained it to, we are going to talk spoilers for the next 60 seconds or so. And so so Vera does not get any spoilers. She's going to take off her headphones so she can't hear anything that Erin and I are going to say. She's going to put 60 seconds on the clock. And if you don't want spoilers yourself, listener, you can jump ahead 60 seconds. So Vera, give us 60 seconds on the clock, and then Erin and I, we will just yell at each other some spoilers.
Do it. Love it.
And go.
All right. Oh my God. So like, I don't even know where to start. So like, Boomer, the second Boomer with Athena, I'm like thinking all of that shit, which has me very excited.
Yeah, I forgot how quickly that comes in. I thought that there was a lot more of Hilo on the planet before Boomer shows up, and yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I also feel so bad for keep saying fucking Caprica 6.
I know. I genuinely just call all of the 6s Caprica 6 because I'm so used to it right now. Like, I just don't that's how I refer to her broadly as Six. So yeah, I'm terrible at it, but sorry.
No, you're fine. I also like it's interesting too. I'm going to try and say this quick. The fact that we get the second Six at the end that like shows up, and I think the implication is she's the same Six, but we also know because of later shit that like they have the whole resurrection ship thing. So I don't think they knew that yet at this point in the show, which is interesting.
And I think we do learn, right, that there is like a delay in the brain, because there's that whole scene and everything later on.
Yeah, they get like the pod shit.
Time.
I know, it's so quick. It's so quick, Erin. I hate it. We could have gone forever.
I'm sure you could have.
Yes. What a great bit.
It's a good bit. Anyways, I will let Erin start this one off. Erin, what did you think of this whole episode? Just sort of general overall thoughts on it.
I mean, the nice thing is when in things like this where when you asked me what episode I wanted to do and I just blindly said this one, I didn't sit back and like pick favorite episodes or anything or or go through like top episodes and figure out which ones were my favorite. I was thrilled that it lived up, that it was as good as I remembered. And that it just ends so well. Like both the miniseries and this episode. Miniseries ended with the Boomer reveal. This one with, President Roslin, like that moment of hope and the population going up by one. Like it is the next episode. Like it just defines Battlestar Galactica for me. So I love these characters. It's great to be back. I dug my Battlestar Galactica shirt out from the bottom of my drawer for this. And I'm like, this show is so good. This show is so good.
Love it. Vera, what do you think?
It's a real solid start. It does a phenomenal job of coming off the miniseries, but also like as a starting point for the show proper, just opening with just how fucked everything is and like the tension, how worn down everybody is already. And it's really well paced. There are a lot of really good character moments. I know I have my nitpicks, but honestly, a fair amount of that had more to do with like, all right, here's the thing I'm going to keep an eye on because I don't know if it's a problem, but we'll see if it's a problem. It's the kind of thing that I would know if I was the one rewatching. I would know whether or not like, oh, okay, yeah, that doesn't go anywhere. Or, oh, no, that's this thing that's being seeded. But because I don't, there's a lot of my moments of like, amount to, I'm saying because I don't know yet.
If I can't briefly jump in, like,
Please.
I think one of the things with this episode that will hopefully allay some of your thoughts about this without spoiling anything is that you can tell that this show trusts its audience. There's so many times where they could have explained how long we've been in space. They could have explained like, killing the Olympic carrier definitely didn't have anyone on it. Like there's all these things, or like even when they do the time cut to them now being 24 hours later, they didn't explain anything beyond that. They just trusted us as an audience member to keep up with the story. And so I think I appreciate that as a viewer, that I'm not having everything spoon-fed to me, which again, there's good reason for doubt. And we've been burned by plenty of other shows, but I think this show does a great job of trusting its audience.
And I think that's the other thing I really love about this episode and the show generally that we've already picked up on. It just allows you to like intuit so much about the characters and what's going on. Like again, that like the quick example of like the Apollo beat, like with when he blows up the Olympic carrier. It's calling back to the earlier scene with Starbucks, but it doesn't like make it obvious that we're drawing. Like on a CW style show, it'd be like, oh yeah, remember when I said this? This is just like, they would draw attention to it. And this never does that in any way, shape, or form. It just asks you to keep up. It asks you to figure out what the fuck, like it's been a year and it's already like, figure the fuck out that everyone's been waiting 33 minutes for the silence to appear. Like it just doesn't really explain that to you right away. And you just have to like, just get it from context clues or figure it out from what they're saying. Like it lets you figure it out really, really well. And I love that for it. And then just to kind of speak on my thoughts really quickly, just to add on to both of you, I think it's like I said, it's a great back to the show. It showcases like the tension, the like theme of hope that we will get with this show, that it's not just dark and depressing and sad. Like there is hope that happens. It just there's so it's like it's got a little bit of hope, just a tiny little dash amidst your despair. But it's like a good tone setter. Like it's all sad. It's all very sad, but it's not going to be just sad. Like there's going to be something. And so I appreciate that. And then the other thing too that I just rewatching this show that I really love and miss a lot of is this is such a good single episode, and yet it's also ties into that larger narrative. And this is like right at that era where we were starting to get more serialized TV shows like Lost, like Battlestar Galactica, and everything sort of sticking around from week to week, which is not like even Deep Space Nine, which we both love, Aaron. It like still kind of had a little bit of a reset, even it did have ongoing storylines. This doesn't, and I like that. And yet it's still telling one story within the episode. And this is such a good tense thriller episode that it does all in one episode while still telling the overall story and making things feel weighty and like the tiredness and the weight of last week will carry to this one. That I really really loved. And it's why it's my favorite type of storytelling style in TV. Generally speaking, every story requires different structure, but I like that sort of like one really strong episode, like story, but also carrying things over, as opposed to like the more modern aspect of like it's a 8-hour movie, which means it drags for 6 of the 8 hours or whatever. So yeah, love this episode. Fantastic way back in a great first episode for the show. So, yep. All right. Anything else?
No, I'm good.
All righty then. Stuff time. This is where we promote ourselves. So, Erin, what are you working on? What are you doing? Where can people find you?
I am most likely to be found on Blue Sky at Dr. Erin Mac, DrErinMac. You can find me on that same handle on Instagram and on Twitch. And I have a YouTube channel, Dr. Erin Explains the Universe. Just search for Erin Macdonald. I pop up pretty easily. And I am producing another short film that we are currently crowdfunding for. So I think this may be out before the crowdfunding thing ends.
It should be out like we should have like a week or so left, I believe.
Great. So it's called Long Away. It's on Seed and Spark. I'll have the links to it pinned in all the socials that I talked about. And thank you for having me on this journey with you. It's very exciting.
Thank you for coming. It was an honor.
It was great
Vera,
having you on.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sucks having you on, Vera, but Aaron's always
I know,
yeah.
but you're stuck with me, bitch.
I know, god damn it. Fuck.
You can find my stuff. You can look for Council of Geeks for the geeky stuff. Patreon pays the bills. The main thing that funds is my YouTube channel. New videos every week on Saturdays. And the Break Room of Geeks is my rambly, unscripted thoughts on whatever I have watched, read, listened to, or played lately. You can also find Council of Geeks on Blue Sky and Instagram, and I stream on Twitch on Wednesdays and Fridays. That's the geeky stuff. If you prefer the spicy stuff,
you can look for Vera Wild. Wild is spelled WYLDE. And you can find increasingly spicy content on YouTube, Instagram.
Screw you, Vera. I hate you so much. Anyways, you
can be better than that. And I expect better things from you.
I'm not.
And I will get you there with time and discipline.
I'm staying this way. I'm going to be trash human for the rest of my life. Anyways, you can find me at YouTube. Video essays are there. Recent video that'll be up will be the stories that white supremacy tells us. So about different stories that about domination control that white supremacists like to tell. And there will be another video that'll be a companion to that coming out in the next few weeks. So that's a depressing video. There's a hopeful video. There'll be a companion piece coming. So check that out. Secondary channel, Jesse Gender After Dark, where I do news, reviews, reactions, rambly content. I'll be reviewing Daredevil Born Again over there because that's coming. As well as I think the week that this releases, I'll have a review of the recent, soon to be released Star Trek Voyager documentary To the Journey, so you can check that out. I am on Blue Sky, which is the one and only real social media channel that I use. And then I am also on Patreon. That helps me pay the bills, get you bonus stuff like your name and videos and things like that. And I am also on the streaming service Nebula, which houses my movie Identities, which was also produced by another wonderful guest here, and also features the voice acting of another shitty person on this podcast that I don't really like, but it's fine. She's in my movie. Fuck it. Love you, Vera. But you can check out Identities.
My name appears right before John Delancey in the credits.
It does. It does. So
would you say that you were on top of John Delancey?
Well, it depends on how you want to consider things. If we're scrolling credits, sure. But if we're having them come up on screen, technically he's coming in behind me, and I'm very much okay with that.
Uh-huh. You're consenting? Oh, cute. We saw him last week anyways.
I hung out with him within the last 48 hours. It's fine. This isn't weird at all. It's great.
It's all good. It's all good.
Mr.
Anyways,
Delancey, if you ever see this, apologies.
we love you and adore you. Thank you, and we apologize. Anyways, trying to think. Yeah, Identities is on there. Sign up for Nebula if you can. That should be everything with me. All right. Anything else, you two?
Nah.
Alrighty then.
So say we all.
So say we all. Thank you, Dr. Erin, for being here. Adore you. Love you. Talk to you later. And for everyone else, I hope you all live long and prosper.
Be seeing you.